We are live.
All right.
Good evening and welcome to yet another episode of Battle Tested History. This is our 10th. Can you believe we've done 10 of these things
10 of
now?
these. We're getting there slowly but surely.
Slowly but surely.
Yeah.
And tonight's episode is about Otto Skorzeny, the so called most dangerous man in Europe.
Yeah.
Um, the German, when you think about the German army in World War II, the immediate image that comes to mind is jackbooted thugs goose stepping across Europe. And there was a lot of that, to be sure.
Yeah.
But the thing about the German army is they were good damn soldiers.
Yeah.
No matter what else you say about them, most of them were good soldiers.
Yeah.
And arguably one of the best was Otto Skorzeny.
Yeah.
And there aren't any real movies about him
No.
specifically, but the one we've chosen to kind of wrap this thing around is Where Eagles Dare.
Yes. My favorite espionage movie of all time.
And by all means, Scott, take it away.
If you have not seen Where Eagles Dare, it's an old movie, 1965, I think. It's one of those with a huge cast, Richard Burton, Clint Eastwood, and it's all about Clint Eastwood is grabbed out of the American army and thrown in with this group of 5 British commandos.
Mm-hmm.
Their goal is they're going to sneak in and they're going to gather some top secret information from a German castle on top of this mountain in either like southern Germany or northern Austria. And you know something's not going right at the very beginning because of the 6th that parachute in, one of the British officers dies. I mean, a broken neck, which is very suspicious because they're all trained paratroopers. So the movie goes, and it's fairly good in some aspects of espionage. A lot of it is just pure drama. The way that they're going to they go to the local town and they meet the 2 girls who are one's that work at the local bar, who know all the Germans and who figured out ways to get in. And 3 of the British officers get captured. So it's now down to Richard Burton and Clint Eastwood. And the only way they can get into the castle is they have to ride the top of the gondola from the bottom near the river all the way up to the castle, which is absolute bullshit because they're great scenes where they're traveling up, but like nobody spots these guys sitting on top of it from either the castle or the ground. And then once they get into the castle, and I don't want to give anything away, but once you get into the castle, they go into the room of the commandant and they find the commandant, the head of intelligence, the 3 German officers, the 3 British officers sitting there who you find out are double agents. And at that point, you lose track of the movie.
Yeah.
It's a great movie because the double crossing and the espionage and person turning on people. And, first time I watched it, I'm like, okay, am I missing something? And then like for the last hour of the movie, it's just on your seat action until the very end of the movie. And even the very end of the movie has surprises.
Yep.
Yeah. But it's a tribute to, British, like we talked about last time, British intelligence operations.
Yep.
They pulled stuff like this off. They were good. The Germans, unfortunately, did not have good intelligence. Theirs was average compared to the British, and compared to the Americans in the Pacific.
Right.
It wasn't, the German intelligence really didn't do that well. Part of the reason was Canaris who was head of the Abwehr, not the Abwehr, the German intelligence,
Mhm.
was anti-Nazi. So there was a lot of stuff he probably repressed, hoping the Germans would lose the war. But as Jeff said at the beginning, where they excelled were these commando style operations, where they would send the troops in and they would pull off stunts that even the SOE would be impressed with.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah.
And the one who was the most notable for this, and I mean not only during World War II, but his history,
Mhm.
his whole history is absolutely fascinating. It would make a fantastic movie. Was SS? I'm trying to remember his rank.
He was a captain and then a lieutenant colonel.
Yeah, SS Obersturmbannführer Otto Skorzeny.
Mhm.
And he was involved. Many of the operations he was involved in didn't work. They were well planned, but for various reasons, either the operation was a success and the campaign failed. But the one that he's most noted for was when the Americans invaded the Italian mainland in September 1943. The Italian government surrendered. They pulled Mussolini out and they surrendered to the Allies. The German army came in, occupied all of Italy, but Mussolini was still held captive. And Skorzeny led a parachute raid. He was held captive on this chateau on top of a mountain. And one night, Skorzeny led a raid in. It was a bunch of paragliders and paratroopers. They went in, they rescued Mussolini, and they got him back to Germany.
Mhm.
And it was a very famous raid. I mean, it was all over the German, Italian press, which means naturally the British and the Americans knew about it.
Right.
And he overnight became a hero and a bit of an icon, though there was a deep, dark, shady side to him.
Well, yeah, in fact, there's a deep, dark, shady side to that mission. Because, number one, he wasn't the one who planned it. Two other guys did. A general and a captain, I think, actually planned the raid. He organized it, and he made sure to be in the picture when they escorted Mussolini out of his prison cell. But I think he took a bit too much credit for it.
Oh.
And they had already paid off the head prison guard, the captain of the prison.
Oh, okay.
They had already paid him off. So he basically went up to the guards and said, "Lay down your weapons."
Okay. See, that I did not know. Yeah.
Well, that's how nobody died.
Yeah.
There was no fight for it. They just gave up. And you can see there are group photographs taken with Mussolini of his guards are all around. They're smiling. They're happy. You get the Nazis around them.
Yeah.
The whole thing was rigged. But anyway, now these are some of these things we know he was, some of these things we suspect he was. To check this out, he was a Nazi commando, a double agent for the Soviets, a member of an exclusive neo-Nazi group called Haka, of which there are only 35 members, and even Himmler didn't know about it. He was an informant for U.S. intelligence, an operative with the Vatican, and a Mossad assassin.
Yes.
He was all of these things. This guy was the real deal.
Yeah.
Even though his first mission was in Iran, they parachuted in carrying gold. trying to
Yeah.
get the Iranians to join them and do an uprising, take over. Well, as soon as the gold ran out, the Iranians sold them to the British.
Mm.
And they escaped and, did the usual stuff like that, but it was a complete failure.
Yeah.
Um, then there was, let me see.
Well, the September was the Operation Oak, the rescue
Right.
of Mussolini.
Mm-hmm.
There was, and there's a lot of controversy about this, Operation Long Jump, the plan to assassinate Stalin, Churchill, and Roosevelt during the Tehran Conference of 43.
Mm-hmm. There is some speculation that the mission never existed,
Yes, yeah.
that it was made up by the Soviet Union so that Churchill and FDR would have to stay at the Russian embassy
Right.
where they could be bugged.
Yeah.
I would buy that one.
Yeah, that's sort of what I've heard too. There
Mm-hmm.
was a German assassination attempt launched on Churchill. I really don't know much about it, but it was the basis, and it failed naturally.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the basis for the movie.
I had a needle.
No, not Eye of the Needle. The other one, The Eagle Has Landed.
Right, that one.
It was the basis for that movie.
Mm-hmm.
And again, that movie in the book was Waffen SS officers like Skorzeny. They weren't the SS involved in the concentration camps. They weren't the SS involved in the slaughter of innocent civilians and Jews. These were the tough fighters. These were the best of the best.
Right.
And, and these guys entered World War II perfect because they had already had experience. So many of them had fought in the Spanish Civil War.
Mm-hmm.
There was the takeover, the Anschluss of Austria. There was the taking over of the Rhineland, the annexations of the Sudetenland, Czechoslovakia. So, in some respects, North Africa. So by the time, and Poland. So by the time they went to war with the French and the British, they had years of military experience.
Yeah.
And, the French and the British were sitting there on the front lines in May 1940 thinking, yeah, this is a phony war. And the next thing you know, the British are retreating from Dunkirk and the French are surrendering at Compiègne.
French.
Yeah.
But,
But it was funny because out of those that, as the seasoned veterans, from lower ranks up high, got killed in battle, Skorzeny was one of those that just happened to survive. He suffered severe head trauma from shrapnel on the Eastern Front.
yeah,
So-
during the siege of, or the siege-ish of Moscow.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it was interestingly enough, while he was back home in Austria, recuperating from his head injury, that's when he came up with the idea for this special operations stuff.
Mm-hmm.
He created the concept. He tossed it off to the guy in the SS who replaced Reinhardt.
Oh, God, I'm trying to remember who that
I can't
was.
think of his name. But yeah, he replaced him.
I want to say it was Wolf or something.
Something like that, yeah.
Now I got to relook that up. No, I'm interested in Reinhard Heydrich because this says a lot about me and my wife, but the first time we went on a trip together, we went with a friend of ours who wrote the book on the assassination of Heydrich, and we went to Czechoslovakia. We went to Prague to see all the sites associated with it.
Oh, wow.
So it's like after seeing those, it was like, oh, okay.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, now I'm interested. But yeah, that was my wife's and I's first trip. So
Yeah. And then I believe after Oak which was the rescue of Mussolini.
Yes.
He went into um, Hungary
Hmm.
and kidnapped the son of the Hungarian prime minister, whoever he was, king, whoever the guy was. Kidnapped their son, that guy's son, and forced him to start turning in the Hungarian Jews.
Oh, you're talking about Admiral Miklos Horthy.
Yeah,
Yeah, and they captured his. Yeah,
and they forced him to say, okay, Hungarian Jews, and like 300,000 of them died.
yeah,
So that was one kind of technically the result of Skorzeny's mission was that 300,000 Jews died. He didn't really have any direct involvement with it.
no,
He just kidnapped the guy's son.
right, but still an accomplice.
It's, yeah, well, the thing he got in most trouble for was the one thing that they got right in the movie The Battle of the Bulge with Henry
Yeah,
Fonda,
yeah,
which it's not a bad movie.
it's a horrible movie.
Well, it's not a bad movie if you ignore how blatantly historically inaccurate it is.
Yeah,
The only thing they got right in that movie was the German unit that went in dressed as Americans
yes,
and caused a bunch of trouble.
yeah, yeah. They found Germans who had been either born and raised in America or studied there. Their English, their American was fluent. They knew
Mhm.
the culture. They dressed them in SS uniforms, and they'd go to the crossroads and change the signs.
Right.
So everybody thinks they're going to the big town and they're heading out to a little country town somewhere. And like you said, it was extraordinarily successful, screwing up things those first few days.
Well, yeah, it's kind of an odd incident, and that if you go by the numbers, it really wasn't that big of a deal.
Mm.
But the chaos it caused. I mean, they had the American forces so paranoid that they actually stopped Montgomery at a checkpoint, and Montgomery, being Montgomery, told his driver, "No, keep driving." So they shot out his tires, and then trundled him into a barn where they held him until they could confirm his identity. But that's how screwed up it was.
Yeah.
There was a rumor floating around from some of that unit that got captured that their real mission was to assassinate Eisenhower,
Mm.
who was in Paris at the time. So they basically put Eisenhower under house arrest for several days
Yeah.
during the bulge, which couldn't have helped much.
And I mean, part of the success of the operation was Hitler was getting really spooked out that we seemed to know what they were doing. So he assumed we had broken the German code, which we had, and nothing about the Battle of the Bulge was done over radio traffic. All communications were drivers going from Berlin to the command and back. So when on December 16th, when the bulge began, no one from the poor schmuck sitting on the front line who was getting overrun by panzers all the way up to Eisenhower, Churchill, and FDR had any clue what was going on.
Yep.
So there was no leadership at any level. So
Nope, it cut the U.S. flat-footed.
yeah.
Now,
One person, though, knew what to do, but we're not going to talk about Patton.
Yeah, we could, but no. There is. We could go on and on about the Battle of the Bulge, I suppose. Um, but yeah, forget it. Let's just keep it Otto Skorzeny.
Yeah.
Um, so after that was Operation Grief. Yeah, that was Operation Grief. The acting as U.S. soldiers.
Yes. Yeah. That was Operation Grief.
Mm-hmm.
And then the last thing he was involved with in World War II was he was either in charge of or one of the people in charge of setting up the SS Werewolf divisions behind the Allied lines.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And for those of you that read our books, we're talking gorillas, not real werewolves. Despite what some of the crappy movies would have you believe.
Indeed. So then the war ends, and he turned himself into the Americans wisely.
Yeah.
And he got into a little bit of trouble because the Germans in Operation Grief were ordered by Skorzeny to wear American uniforms, which technically is a war crime.
Right.
But he was exonerated because his lawyer got the British SOE to admit they'd done the same thing.
Yeah.
So he got off, and he remained detained by the Americans until 1948,
Yeah.
I believe, when he escaped by having a couple of that same team SS officers dressed as Americans and dressed as American MPs
And walked right through the front gate.
picked him up, drove him right out the gate.
Now, I'm not trying to be a conspiracy theorist here, but considering his later years and considering what we were doing with Paperclip, it makes me wonder whether the American MPs were that stupid, or whether it was, okay, 4 MPs are going to walk out, they're going to look suspicious, don't say anything about them. But you know what kind of surprised me was they went after him for the war crime trial.
Right.
But nobody ever thought to like bring him up on charges of kidnapping Horther's son and forcing Horther to ship 300,000 Jews out of Hungary to death.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they gave him a pass on that one. They did. I was just watching a thing on the last days of the Third Reich. At the time, immediately after the surrender, there were still 8 million Nazis in Germany.
Oh, yeah.
At the end of the war. They had to sift through 8 million. They arrested and tried 100 and something thousand of them. That's a lot of trials.
It is very, and you know, there's a great scene in Pat, which there's a lot of truth to it. You know, some people were Nazis just because they wanted to continue working.
Yeah.
They wanted to continue working at the post office, or they wanted to work at the mayor's office. So you had to join the party. Mm-hmm. And it was very difficult to sort through who was a devout Nazi party Nazi member, you know, who was like, oh yeah, let's go to those concentration camps and do what we need to do, or those that were like, yeah, I just want this war to be over and I want to put bread on my table until.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly.
And but yeah, he escaped in 48, and then he wound up in Spain.
Spain.
Yeah.
And he was in Madrid with his wife, when this couple uh, befriended them, claiming they'd just been robbed. So he helped them out. They sat there having dinner, having drinks, having a good old time. They go back to Skorzeny's house, and he pulls a gun on them. Says, "I know who you are. I know you're here to kill me." And they tell him, "Dude, if we wanted you dead, you'd have been dead weeks ago." And they offer, it's Mossad, of all things, the Israeli Secret Service, making a deal with the most dangerous Nazi on the planet.
Yeah.
So they had him go into Egypt and root out all of the people that were making rockets for the Egyptians, including one of Werner von Braun's proteges, who was put in charge of it. I forget the guy's name. But Skorzeny exposed all of these Nazi scientists who were working for the Egyptians. He also exposed the companies, the German companies that were sending missile parts to the Egyptians. And then he took this head scientist out into the woods, boom,
Yeah.
killed him dead in shit, all for the Mossad. And he didn't take any money for it. He told Mossad he would do it, provided they took him off of Simon Wiesenthal's list.
Yeah.
And Simon Wiesenthal was the Nazi hunter,
Yes. Yeah.
the Nazi war crime hunter, who, about the only one he didn't get that he really wanted to was Mengele.
Yeah.
He got a number of other ones. Who was that one they kidnapped?
Oh, the one they kidnapped in Argentina?
Yeah,
Eichmann.
Yeah, they kidnapped Eichmann, but they could never. Even though Mengele was there, they knew where he was. He was even working for Mengele machine parts or whatever the hell it was. So he wasn't hiding, but he ended up dying at like age 90 or something.
Yeah, Mengele's kept on surviving. I remember watching.
So he got arrested.
Yeah. Nope, they kept him under lock and key. I think he like every month or so changed where he lived.
Mm.
There was a huge SS presence down in South America. And one of the things that's come out recently, it was a lot of the guys who made it, a lot of the SS who made it to South America did with the help, not of the Vatican, but with the Catholic Church.
Well, it
wasn't sanctioned by the Pope, is what I'm saying. Yeah.
Well, that's what they say.
Yeah.
The priest that was doing it, whose name I wrote down somewhere, but I don't have it immediately to hand, was doing it from an office in Vatican City.
Right.
So, I don't know, whatever.
It's hard to say. I mean, and most of the reason they were doing it was because, to the Vatican, these guys were fighting communists. Communism was an enemy of religion as much as it was of capitalism. So, enemy of my enemy.
Yeah.
I mean, and Skorzeny also worked for a little while for Galen. And Galen is a fascinating. He was like one of the top 5 in the SS intelligence leadership. And after the war, he gathered all these documents and hid them. And then he surrendered to the Allies with like a folder, and he said, "Take a look at these." And they looked at them and they said, "This is fascinating." He goes, "Yeah, I got tons more where that came from. Now, here are my demands." Not only was he not tried as a war criminal, he headed up West Germany's intelligence agency after World War II.
Yep.
And they went through because, he had records of where all the Soviet spies were in 1945. They were able to go through and just wipe them out. And the CIA was just sort of like, we don't want to know what you did. You're doing good for us now. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. There's even a rumor, because Skorzeny did end up down in Argentina
Yeah.
hanging out with Perón.
Yeah.
And there's a rumor he had an affair with Evita.
I wouldn't surprise me.
Wouldn't surprise me. I mean, this guy was a badass among badasses. No question about it.
In 1952, while he was working for Galen, he took a whole bunch of SS officers back to Egypt, and they trained the Egyptian army.
Yeah.
Yeah. And apparently one of the people that he helped train for operations into Israel was Anwar Sadat.
So, when he died,
yeah,
in 1970, whatever it was.
75, I think.
Yeah. A lot of people went to his funeral. Mostly it was old Germans. There was one who wasn't, and it was a Mossad agent. And he went there because they'd hated each other. He was the Mossad agent who recruited him to do that assassination. And they hated each other. But the Mossad agent went to his funeral to pay tribute to a fellow warrior.
Yeah.
And he was that, whatever else you say about him.
I mean, this was his life. This wasn't some guy who came in, did it for 5 years, and then walked away. I mean, he kept up this life of espionage and commando-style tactics. He only slowed down in 1970 when he started to get brain tumors.
Yeah, he died of lung cancer.
Let me see. Yeah. I'm sorry. It says he had 2 tumors in 1970. It doesn't say whether it was his brain or his lungs. Let's see. He was born in 1908. So by the time 1970 hit, he was. I'm 62? Horrible at that. 62? Yeah, he was already 60 years old.
Yeah. And they were 60 hard years.
Yeah.
I mean, he wasn't sitting back.
No, he wasn't one of these guys that was sitting in Berlin, having orgies, drinking, going hunting. He was on the front line through the whole time, and he just kept this up afterwards. I mean, he played all sides of the fence.
Oh, yeah, he did.
And it was just sort of like, I think everybody was just sort of like, yeah, he's a son of a bitch, but look what he did for us. So we'll turn our back when he did this against us.
Exactly. Exactly. And it's a shame they never made a movie about him.
I know. I was just going to say that. I mean, this would be a fascinating movie to make, or a fascinating miniseries. I was checking out on Wikipedia. Apparently, the only films he ever appeared in, his character, was the television drama Mussolini, The Untold Story. And if that's the one I think it is, that was the one with George C. Scott as Mussolini.
I'm glad I've never seen it.
It's actually a really good film about Mussolini. When I saw it, I was like, wait a minute. He raped women? And then I looked it up, and yeah, he was a rapist. But Skorzeny makes the appearance in the movie when they rescue him from Italy and send him back to Germany. So other than that, I don't even think he's mentioned in the Battle of the Bulge.
Not by name, no.
No. You just know, for those of us that are big history buffs, we know it was Skorzeny that did it, But in the movie, it's just a whole bunch of Americans there just doing it. So,
Yeah, that movie. I mean, it's entertaining enough if you ignore the history.
what I love about the movie is the German scenes were done by a German director. The American scenes were done by an American. And if you look at it, when I heard that, I went back and watched it. The American scenes are like dumb and boring. The German scenes are like paying tribute to the SS Panzer divisions. It's a love story to them.
And you know that may be why they haven't done a movie about Skorzeny?
Hmm.
Because it's glorifying a Nazi.
Yeah.
I have a hard time viewing him with the rest of those assholes. So I can't really look at him like Himmler or Goering or
No.
Goebbels or any of those guys.
No. Because as far as I know, he never was actively involved in any anti-partisan Einsatzgruppen. He was not involved in operations that killed innocent civilians during World War II.
No.
Now, you could say afterwards, when he was training the Egyptian army, when he was training the PLO, that he was an accomplice, like with the whole Horthy thing. You know, when he forced Horthy to get, to move the Jews. But I know somebody's going to yell and scream at me. I don't consider him as much of a war criminal as I do Werner von Braun. Werner von Braun knowingly used, of course, this was covered up until recently, knowingly used Jewish slave labor and worked them to death in the V2 factories.
Mm-hmm.
And afterwards, because, the Germans were light years ahead. Oh, sorry, bad pun. The Germans were years ahead of us in rocket technology. It was just all like, yep, come on through. We don't want to know what you did.
Yeah.
And then he got together with Disney, like, big surprise.
Yeah, that's.
And for anybody who doesn't know, look it up. Walt Disney was very pro-Nazi before World War II.
Yep. So was Henry Ford.
Henry Ford, yep.
Charles Lindbergh.
Charles Lindbergh, though the minute the war broke out, Charles Lindbergh was like, I screwed up. Charles Lindbergh also helped American pilots in the Pacific, training them in how to get the most mileage out of your gas based on his flight to France, because, these American pilots flying out of Guadalcanal and that, it was hundreds of miles before you got to see what you needed to see.
Yeah.
So yeah.
You don't realize how the scale of the Pacific Islands until you go there.
Yeah.
Because you're talking about a tiny dot in the middle of a gigantic pool of blue.
Yeah.
There's a lot of empty ocean out there.
Yeah. And I mean, back then it wasn't, you didn't have the satellites.
Mm-mm.
You had a map and you just flew on your compass and hoped you found that little tiny speck.
And if you're traveling 1,000 miles, you're a couple of degrees off, you'll miss the island completely.
Yeah.
So,
So, he sort of redeemed himself for his pro-Nazi leanings, but some of the others didn't.
Skorzeny, I think, was one of the few upper echelon Nazis who could legitimately claim he was following orders. Because what he did as a soldier.
Yeah.
He was given a mission as a soldier that he performed against combatants.
Yes. Yeah.
In a wartime situation.
Yeah.
He was doing his job.
Yeah. He was no civilians, were targeted. And, like we said earlier, yes, what he did at the Battle of the Bulge was technically a war crime.
Yeah.
we were all doing it.
Yeah.
You know, the fact that the SOE stood up and said, you know, it was like Admiral Donitz during the first Nuremberg trials. They put him on trial for his vicious submarine warfare during World War II. And American and British subcommanders came to the Nuremberg trials and said, no, he started the war, you know, rescuing survivors until the British started bombing them. They said he waged a perfectly legitimate naval war, submarine warfare campaign. The only reason he went to Nuremberg for 20 years was because he was Führer of the Reich for 7 days after Hitler committed suicide.
Yep.
And the Soviets wanted that.
Yeah, he just happened to be in the wrong place at the wrong time.
Yeah.
But anyway.
Yeah. But Skorzeny is a very interesting. Now, if they said they're going to make a movie about Skorzeny, who would you want to play him?
Who would be good at it? I mean, my initial reaction would be the guy who played the SS officer in Inglourious Bastards.
Oh, Vike, I think his name is, yeah.
He's not big enough.
No.
Skorzeny was an imposing character. The guy was 6'4",
yeah,
which in the 1940s was huge.
Mm-hmm. And he wasn't a shy dude either, so yeah.
No, he had a big old scar on his cheek.
Yeah, dueling, right?
Fencing.
Yes, from fencing, yeah.
It was a badge of honor, I guess, back in those days.
I don't know who I'd want to play him. I mean, I could think of actors from the 60s and 70s.
Yes.
You know, Michael Caine, Peter O'Toole. But now it's like, what are you going to do? Get, you know, Chris Pratt to play him?
No. You'd have to get somebody who could legitimately pull off a German accent.
Yeah.
Which none of those guys could, but who knows?
Well, you could do Brad Pitt from Inglourious Bastards. Buongiorno.
Buongiorno. Yeah,
I never get tired of that movie.
I have a hard time watching it because of the end.
Yeah.
Because I know that never fucking happened.
No, but it's... Roth described it as like, you know, history porn. That's how you wanted it to happen.
Which kind of brings us back to the movie that we chose.
Yes.
When Eagles Dare, where Eagles Dare. It never happened. It was based on a novel by Alistair MacLean.
Yeah.
And it's the kind of... It never happened, but you wish it had.
Yeah.
It's the same way with Guns of Navarone.
Yeah.
Never happened, but you wish it had.
Yeah.
Even The Dirty Dozen
Mm.
is one of those. You wish it had happened.
Yeah.
But it didn't.
Well, it was great espionage in that, you know, okay, I know what's going on. Something happens and you're all screwed up. And then you think, okay, now I know what's going on. Good plot twist. And then they screw it up again. So.
Yep. And, you know, Ian Fleming notwithstanding, the life of a Secret Service, of a secret agent, wasn't anywhere near that glamorous.
No.
That was the one good thing that movie, Red Sparrow, did well.
Mm-hmm.
The one with Jennifer.
Yeah, I
Lawrence.
Saw it, but I can't remember it right now. But yeah.
Yeah, as her Russian accent, but it played that the espionage, the secret agent aspect of it wasn't remotely glamorous.
No, and that's that's except for the occasional covert operation that you run,
Mm-hmm.
where that's really exciting. Most of my job was, talking to the case officer calls me, "Hey, I'm going to go see this agent today. What questions do you have for him? Here's the questions." He'd send back the intelligence. I'd write it up. It's like, "Oh, wait a minute. What did he mean by this?" It was important, but
Mm-hmm.
it was very, mundane. My memoirs would never sell if I wrote that book. Skorzeny, though, was like one of those unique figures. His whole career was not mundane.
Yeah.
It went from just one high point to another.
Mm-hmm.
Even if he wasn't successful. I mean,
Yeah,
Skorzeny never wrote memoirs, did he?
no,
No.
no, I don't believe so. Actually, yes, he did.
He did?
He co-wrote a book. I saw that a couple of weeks ago.
I'm looking it up now.
Yeah, he co-wrote a book. It's on Amazon.
Oh, Otto Skorzeny, My Commando Operations.
Yep.
The Memoirs of Hitler's Most Daring Commando. Yep, it's on Amazon.
Mm-hmm.
Now I want to probably go out and get that.
I already got the other one.
Oh. Yeah, the other one was, let's see, the Skorzeny Papers. Oh no, don't get that one. Skorzeny Papers, Evidence for the Plot to Kill JFK.
Yeah,
I think you're talking about Stuart Smith, the Devil's Disciple.
possibly. I
There's actually quite a few. Skorzeny by Charles Whiting, who was a very good author.
think that's the one I have.
Yeah. Whiting was good. I liked Whiting. His books were good.
Okay. Otto Skorzeny, the Devil's Disciple. Stuart
Okay.
Smith.
I've seen that one with by Hugo
Stuart
Bristol.
Smith. Stuart Smith.
Oh. Wait a minute. Yeah, Stuart Smith.
I have the audio version of it.
I mean, if you history buffs are looking for something fascinating, something that really is an Ian Fleming-ish type espionage. Skorzeny was not involved in intelligence gathering operations. Everything Skorzeny did was covert operations, training, things like that. But yeah, pick up one of these books. He's a fascinating character in history. And whether you despise him, whether you think, yeah, he's just a Nazi, yeah, he trained, he trained Anwar Sadat to kill Israelis. He forced Hortzer there to send 300,000 Jews. You don't have to like the guy. The history is fascinating.
Mm-hmm.
Yep. And again, you gotta kind of put yourself in his shoes. A lot of his mythos was that he was really good at shameless self-promotion.
Yeah.
But you can't fault the guy for that.
No.
But again, he was told, this is your mission. Go do it. And it was always against combatants.
Yeah.
That's legit in wartime.
Exactly.
Yeah, he was a Nazi, and Nazis suck. But, they were, most of the German soldiers, there's a great bit in Band of Brothers, where they did an interview with one of the actual guys.
Oh, yeah.
And he was talking about, well, the most of the German soldiers were just like us. If we met them someplace, after the war, they might like to hunt, they might like to fish.
Yeah.
You know, they were just like us. They were doing their job, and we were doing our job. It's just that that job meant that we had to kill each other.
Yeah. Well, I remember when I was reading The Longest Day by Cornelius Ryan,
Mm-hmm.
he interviewed a lot of German soldiers, French, Canadian, French people living there. And he said, as he started talking to people, German soldiers started connecting with the Americans and the British and the Canadian soldiers and was striking up friendships. You know,
Yeah, and why not?
it was like I remember the stories after the Civil War. There's one story that was like, I think the 30th anniversary after the Battle of Gettysburg, and all the veterans came and they had this big camp out and they were drinking and they were having a great time, and they decided to do a reenactment of Pickett's charge. And that thing just became a massive brawl. 50-year-old Confederates were beating up 50-year-old Union soldiers, and that night they were all sitting around the campfire again, drinking and hugging each other.
Mm-hmm.
These aren't the guys that these aren't the guys that start the war. These aren't the guys that plan the strategy. These are the guys like you, me, everyone out there listening to this, who got yanked out of their lives, thrown in. A perfect example of this is Tom Hanks' character in Saving Private Ryan.
Yeah.
If Saving Ryan is what I have to do to go back home to my wife, then damn it, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's what most of these guys were.
Yeah.
So, yeah, he was the enemy. He's a bad guy.
Yeah.
But you can't ignore the fact that he was the baddest son of a bitch
Yeah.
in World War II.
And I mean, come on, if he did have Vita Perone,
Yeah. I mean, the guy was fucking Schwarzenegger.
Yeah. Yeah. Except he was never governor of California, but
True.
Yeah. No, it is a fascinating history. Those of us that love history can look at it and look at the bad, look at the Salem witchcraft trials, and not you judge them, but we try to look at it and in the time frame. If you're fighting a war and somebody tells you, "Yep, dress up as Americans and screw them up for the Battle of the Bulge," you go ahead and do it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's the biggest problem with all this woke stuff is that people are viewing past events through the filter of current society, and it doesn't work.
Even beyond wokeism, what I learned was you can't view a past event, even if you're trying to look at it rationally, through the prism of your time.
You can't.
I mean, when you look at the Salem witchcraft trial, example, because I did research for a recent book on it. Yeah, to us, it's like, how fucking insane is this town for listening to these brats?
Mm-hmm.
But you're talking a town where drinking, where premarital sex, where smoking cigarettes was bad. And, you believed in all this stuff. Oh, bad crop this year, must have been somebody put a curse on us. Couldn't have been the fact that it snowed all winter.
No.
Yeah.
Didn't have anything to do with it. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you have to look at these historic events within the context of the time.
Yeah.
If you separate the event from the context, you'll never understand anything.
Right.
So, but anyway, we leave this with about 5 minutes left. So, what you got going on?
Let's see. I've started work. Well, the Chronicles of Paul 2 is out on Kindle Unlimited, and in print.
Mm-hmm.
I am working on Nursalissa 9, which I'm hopefully going to get out in January. And I'm working on a special project that I'm hoping to get out in time for Christmas, but I'm not going to announce it until it's almost ready to be put out there.
Very cool.
And then let's see, I've got 2 short stories that are coming out soon. I've got one for an anthology. It's probably one of the most darkest things I've written, A Father's Love. They're all post-apocalypse stories. And then I got friends of mine who wrote Vlada, a Dracula tale, in which they reversed all the characters. Vlada was Dracula. It was a female Dracula. It was a female Renfield. But like Nina Hacker was now like John Hacker. The 3 brides were actually 3 husbands. And they were doing a sequel, so they asked me if I'd contribute a story to it, which was like, this is awesome, yeah. You know, trying to put a twist on an old tale. So.
Oh yeah, awesome.
So yeah,
very cool.
It's been a good year. Next couple of months we'll be busy.
Mm-hmm.
What about you?
Well, Epic Mayhem Welcome to the City is out in ebook and paperback. Matt Crow has finished the audio. We're just waiting ACX to do whatever it is they do to put it up on their site. He's about to start on Epic Mayhem 2, Body Count, which is out on both ebook and paperback. Okay. And I'm about halfway done with Epic Mayhem 3, Senseless Slaughter.
Now, am I in that one too? I know you brought me back in book 2. This is the book, Epic Mayhem. This is the book. He kills me off gloriously. Thank you. Read this book. It is fun. He's killed off a lot of his friends, a lot of fellow authors, and it's just an actual fun noir story. It reads like a 1960s noir comic book. You know, it's funny, it's gross, it's exciting. I like it. I told Jeff earlier, I like that as much as his Guardians of the Apocalypse series.
Yep. So that was the first book that you showed.
Yeah.
Where I killed him the first time.
Yeah.
I then brought him back to life in Body Count so I could kill him again. Yeah. Naturally.
Yeah. I have ex-girlfriends who want to do that to me.
Yeah. Well, and in the context of this universe, this takes place in, having people die, get brought back to life to die again, it actually makes sense.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know how to explain.
It's a fun book. It's a fun book. It's an easy read. You know, it's not one of those books that you're going to have to, like, whoa, what did he mean by it? You just read it. It's fun.
Yep. It's based on the idea of how fun those old 80s action movies were.
Yeah.
I created a universe that was all action movie all the time.
Yeah. But it's set in 1947, so it's got that noir feel about it.
Yep. And I've been having a lot of fun with it.
Good.
But anyway, also the Angry Eagle anthology, It Came From Hell, that I have 2 stories in. That was just released on Halloween. So that's available. A lot of good people in it. A lot of good new writers. So pick that up. Doesn't hurt. It's only like $2.99. So
yeah,
anyway.
Pick up the anthologies for the authors you like. Read the ones you've never read, especially the new ones. And if you like them, go out and give them a shot. You know, one thing I learned is there are books I've picked up, people I've never heard of, that I'm now lifelong fans of, because their books just don't become popular overnight, but they're damn good writers.
Oh, get this. Yeah. Last night, Jack started writing a short story.
Really? Is he going to kill you in it?
Oh yes. Oh yes. Actually, of course, he's already killed Angel.
Oh, okay.
Because you got to kill Angel.
Yeah,
But
can't leave him out.
yeah, I mean it's raw, but it's entertaining.
Good.
So
And that's what it should be. It's entertainment.
well, yeah, I mean we are in the entertainment business.
Yeah,
If we're not entertaining, we're not
exactly.
doing our job.
I tell people in writing classes that I host, I'm a storyteller. I know different than the guy. We're no different than the guy that sat around the campfire late at night and just told scary stories to kids. Except now we post them on Amazon and get paid for them.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. It's all so much fun. So anyway, thank you for joining us. Um, who knows? We might do Salem Witch Trial next time.
Sometime, yeah.
Hmm? So we shall see, and we shall see you in 2 weeks.
All right. Take it easy, everyone.
Take it easy, folks.